Hello, welcome to our third Looker-focused webinar. We're really excited to have you all here. We're really excited for today's webinar in particular. I think it's a really fun topic. We're going to get a live demo as part of it, so it should be a lot of fun. We're really looking forward to it. My name is Dylan Atlas-Baker. I'm one of the co-founders here at Spectacles. We run this webinar series for those of you who haven't joined us before. We are a CI, a continuous integration automated testing tool for Looker. If you aren't familiar with us, we'll be talking a little bit about our tool today. But really, these webinar series aren't about Spectacles first and foremost. They're really just to bring the Looker community together to talk about interesting things that are going to be of interest to the Looker community, which we're active members of, and we have been well before we started this company. We've been using Looker for a long, long time. And so really appreciate you all joining us. Really looking forward to getting into it today. Before I hand over to Adrian, want to just call out our future webinars. So we do these every other Wednesday. So the next one will be on the 25th. And we've got the next two scheduled already. So the next one's an introduction to the Looker API. That'll be with myself and my co-founder, Josh Temple, who have both done a lot of work with the Looker API when we've been building Spectacles and want to just kind of help people discover and understand what they can do with the Looker API. And then one with the team at DoIt, optimizing cost and speed using BigQuery and Looker, talking about kind of partitioning and lots of ways in which BigQuery and Looker can play together nicely. You can sign up for all of those already today at spectacles.dev/webinar. So make sure you join us for those. They should be a lot of fun and really interesting. Got some nice experts coming in for both of them. I've mentioned this already to everyone, but for these webinars and the ones moving forward, we're going to use a Slack channel in our open source Slack. For the Q&A and for the chat, just allows us to kind of have people interact with each other a bit more, carry on a conversation after the webinar's finished, and really make the most out of these. So I've shared a link to sign up for that in the chat. I'm going to do that again just now. So we'd love to have you join us over there. Shout out for where you're coming from, and we can get going from there. That is it. You'll be hearing more from me a little later, but for now, I'm going to hand over to Adrian, who's going to talk you through all about what linting and Linting LookML is about. So I'll hand over to him.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, here. Give me a second. You should be able to see my screen. So this webinar is about Linters and modern data platform. I'm going to present the first part, and after I will let Dylan to go through Spectacles and the new Linter tools. So I'm Adrian. I'm the head of Analytics Chapter at Infinite Lambda since almost the beginning of the company. Who we are at Infinite Lambda, we are a service company which is helping our customer in different domains like analytics, data engineering, DevOps, and also in software engineering. But let's first focus on modern data platform here. How we are helping our customer is like with the architecture to define the correct architecture that they need based on their needs, and help them to put best practice in place, code development, and trainings. Let's jump to the next slide here. This is a gift that we had from our partner last year. Here it's representing all the partnership that we have and the level with them. So with DBT, we have the platinum one. With Snowflake, we are elite. With Fivetron, we were partner of the year. We have started the company with Looker, so we have a lot of people who have certified also on Looker, and we are friends of Spectacles, so we know exactly what they are doing here. Why this partnership is just a gift for us, it was because we are looking for the best engineer, and how we see this is like engineers should have very good experience in terms of project, but also in terms of certification. It's something that we have in terms of vision with them, and we are helping them to train and be the best with the daily tools that they are using, so they can find the best solution on every problem that they can have during their project. Let's jump to a map of technology that we are using. So again, here is just like representing what are the technology inside the modern data platform here. We don't represent all the technologies here, but right now, when we have started the company, we were focusing on data ingestion, transformation, data warehouse, or data visualization. And now we have extended our services to different areas like event tracking, data governance, and other things here about that. But let's go back to the agenda today. So it's going to be split into 3 parts. First part, we are going to talk about linters inside the modern data platform, how they are useful, why, and how to use them. Second part, we are going to focus on few of them. So we are going to talk about DBT and SQLFluff, and after we will jump to the looker and the other linters. But first, let's start with the theoretical part, why linters are great in general. Here there is like 5 pillars here that I show here. So the first one is about improve the code quality. So linters can help to identify potential problem in code. Linters can help also the developer to write cleaner and more readable code. This can save time, of course, and resource in the long run, as it can prevent also issues that can happen during testing or deployment. Second point is about enhanced efficiency. Linters can also help speed up the development process by highlighting areas of the code that can be inefficient or unnecessarily complex. This can allow developers to streamline their code and make it more efficient. Third point is about consistency and standardization. Linters can enforce the coding standard and convention and helping to ensure that all the code that has been developed inside the project is consistent and easy to read. This can be especially important in large projects with multiple developers, multiple teams working on different parts of the code base. On the first point, the integration with the other tools. So many of the linters has a plugin with editors that you could add it, and after it's going to provide to the engineer the real-time feedback and how the code is written. This can make the development process more seamless and efficient. Last point is also about customization, and I think it's a really good point here. Linters should be customizable. It really depends on where you are inside the project, and that's what we are going to see later. You should consider this as your Bible for your project. It means like if someone, a new engineer joined the project, he could find all the rules defined inside the linter on how to write code, how to do this. It was a song about Michael Jackson about heal the world and make a better place, but it could be translated for your project, heal your project and make a better place for you and for all the engineers here. I hope you don't have the song in your mind. Let's take some examples about how linters can be useful. About the still example here, I don't know if you have opened multiple of time, you have different way of writing SQL code. Sometimes the comma can be at the end of the column or at the beginning of the line. So that's how, when you are defining your linter, how you can translate it into a similar way on every SQL file. So the comma will be at the end of the column. It really depends on how you want to work inside your project. Also, sometimes the code can be difficult to read. So let's take one example that I like to show here is with the order by. So when you are doing order by with first name, last name, birthday, and you are descending the order by descending on the last column, how you can read it is like, well, first name, last name, and birthday is going to be ordered descending, but in fact, no. And that's how the linter can rewrite your code and adding some hints like ordering by ascending and for the first name, last name, and birthday, so it's easy to read. How to work with linters here. Many multiple way. Well, as I said before, it could be a plugin to your editor. So when you are going to write code, the linter is going to highlight the part of the code which is not matching of what you have defined. But if you are a Vim user, for example, and you can use also command line, and this command line, you can use it as to check your code and show the warnings that you have inside your code, or you can use it to fix the code. When you feel ready, you should add it to your CI system. So you are into your continuous integration system. So you have like code which is going to be checked every time that you are creating a pull request, for example, and before the pull request is going to be reviewed, is going to raise a warning. Just one thing, if your project already exists, don't try to fix everything in the same time. You are going to have a huge list and you are going to make a huge commit. This is definitely not a good approach from our point of view. We prefer to have a step-by-step approach. Let's go on how we can work on the step-by-step approach. So first, the linter is not here to make some blocking point for the engineer. It's here to help the engineer to writing the code in the same way. So the first part is to add it to your development, encourage your team members to discuss the rules needs to be applied to the project. And after, when they feel comfortable with the tool, you should create like a first template where you are putting basic rules, and after you adding. When you feel, when the developer are ready to use it with the CI, one way of doing it is like to use the soft CI. So you are going to define part of your project where the linter is going to check the code and is going to raise only warnings. It's not going to be a blocker, and you should discuss again internally about how to make it better. After, on the third step, it could be a partial hard CI. So it means like on the delimited project is not going to raise any more the warnings, but errors. And when you are fully ready, you should go on hard CI, where every time the project is going to be checked if you push something and is going to raise error and is going to block the full project. But again, discuss internally with all the engineer, reiterate the process. The retro is a good moment to discuss everyone here. Let's go now on more example with some examples. So the first one is going to be on SQLFluff. Here I have reduced the map of technology so we can have a better view on what we are talking about here. So about DBT, we can use SQLFluff, and on the data visualization with Looker, we can use now Spectacles, and we are going to see also lamps. What is SQLFluff? Quick introduction about the tool. It has been developed like years ago. It has been split. So the rule inside SQLFluff is split it into two parts. One is the common rule. So what is a common rule? Is something which is stable, can be applied to most of the dialects like Redshift, Snowflake, BigQuery. It could detect also a syntax issue, and it's not oriented to a technology. I'm thinking about DBT. DBT is not something, it's something specific here. So the common rule won't be applied here. Inside in SQLFluff, you can find like more than 70 rules, which are predefined. And after, you just need to add it to your project. And of course, you can exclude some files here. I put it on the right one example, which is another example about how linter can be useful with the distinct function. So when you are using parentheses with distinct, you could think that it's going to make a distinct on the column A, but in fact, it doesn't make sense. So that's why the linter could be useful here. Here, SQLFluff could be used also with Jinja file. You can define it. You have two more examples. Is like on DBT, you could have like sometimes files where there is a lot of complexity and it's going to be very difficult to read. So you can put like a limit on number of lines inside the file. And also another example is like the capitalization if you want to put everything upper or lower. Again, when you feel comfortable with SQLFluff locally, you should put it and add it to your CI. Let's jump now with Looker. Here, LAMPS was developed like many years ago. How it has been defined in terms of rule, there is 4 categories. One is about the key dimension. So the idea about the key dimension, for example, is to help the developer to understand how the view is working. And you can have the definition like putting a rule like every view should have at least one primary key dimension, or the name of the primary key should be pkey underscore something. The other field rules is something related to the labels. It implements fields in a way which maximize the ability of developer to reuse them in the future and maximize the usability of Explorer for end users. For example, the non-hidden fields should have a description, and this LAMS tool can raise a warning if it's not defined. For derivative tables, trigger PD persistent derivative table should use data groups. That's what you can define here. And explorers, one more example is like when you are creating Explorer, when you are making the join, it should not be direct reference to the table. It should use variables. That's what you can define in LAMS. What we have done and what we push into our GitHub repository is the Infinite Lambda templates. So we have defined 3 different templates. One is lower strictness rules that we have put, excluding a lot of rules. So it could be a starting point to use. Medium is adding more complex rule, and the high is very not permissive, and everything needs to be clean inside the code. You can have a look on the GitHub of Infinite Lambda. The name of the project is LAM templates. We have put also a CI job, and you have one screenshot on the right here showing the result of one. That was it for LAMS, and now we can jump into the new Spectacles tool, which is going to be presented by Dylan. I'm going to stop the share, and you should be able to do it.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Let me just move everything around my screen properly. Awesome. Well, what I'm really excited to talk about today is a new LookML linter that is built directly into Spectacles. It's launching today in beta, so we're going to be using it with a bunch of our customers or people who are trialing the tool. Basically, anyone wants to use it as we continue to refine it. But it's live today. It's fully functional, and we're really excited to demo it to you today. As Adrian said, linters can be just incredibly useful for helping teams codify what they consider to be best practice for a project, and also just save time. It just helps people. I think all of us saves people time. All of us have been in teams where the review process for LookML in particular, I think, can become quite time consuming and labor intensive. And we really want to help solve that. We've used the team of Spectacles that uses linters for everything else, for SQL, using SQLFluff and everything else for most of the time we've been working with code, and we're really excited to bring that for LookML to everyone who wants it. Now, as Adrian talked about, LAMS exists is a fantastic linter for LookML, which kind of raises the question, why would you, the team at Spectacles, want to build your own? And there's a couple key reasons for that. One is Spectacles has a hosted app. We really want to build a first-class linting experience for people who are using that app. And for us, it's kind of useful to have control over that and kind of have control of the code base in its entirety and build it so that we can provide that best experience in the app with the best UI as possible. And so that's one of the reasons that we've built our own. Well, we really like LAMS. I've just given a shout out to Fabio in the Slack channel that we're all in. It's been amazing and has inspired a lot of what we've done today. But really for us was kind of wanted to build it out ourselves and make sure we could do things in the exact way that we wanted. And the second was around the customizability of the linter. We really care a lot about people being able to define their own rules, make sure that you can build the rule set in the way that you want, build custom rules as easy as possible. And that's been really core to our thinking around how we've gone into building our linter. And the third bit, which is not really a reason to build your own linter, is just kind of why it was easier for us to say yes to, is we've got a really deep existing expertise in parsing LookML. Josh Temple, my co-founder, built lkml, which is a LookML parser, which is incredibly performant, and he's done a ton of work really at the kind of as low down as you can get into LookML, and so that made it easier for us to say yes. Perfect. So how does it work? Well, our linter is like Lambda, it's like any other. There's a bunch of rules, and we're going to tell you when your code is in violation of those rules. And it's all built into our hosted Spectacles app. And so if anyone's joining today who isn't familiar with Spectacles, Spectacles is a continuous integration tool for Looker. Our core focus thus far has been around things like SQL errors and content validation errors and making sure your data tests run. And we run those on every pull request for you. And today, as of today, you can run the linter on those pull requests in the same way. And so the way this works is we basically just need access to your code. We need to be able to pull your code down so that we can run the linter on it. And so you go into the Spectacles UI, you generate a deploy key, you add it to your Git service, typically GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, Azure DevOps, whatever you're using, and then you run it from the UI. It really is as simple as that. We've been really focused on, not needing to get started, write anything yourself, do anything like that. You really just put a key so you can give us access and you run it from there. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like, what the output looks like, what this process looks like, how we typically think about kind of going through this stuff. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second so that I can share the right stuff. There we go. Perfect. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to make a change to a Looker project that we have, kind of walk you through the workflow of kind of how we see this working. So this is a very small project. It's kind of a standard e-commerce data set. Many of you will be very familiar with something like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my fact orders table here, and I'm going to make a change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a dimension called was delivered. I'm using the GitHub editor here. It's just easier while we're kind of showing everything in GitHub, but you can do this in the IDE as well. You can do this in your own editor, whatever you want. There's nothing special about the tools that you're looking at here today. And so was delivered is going to be of type yes, no, and it's going to have a SQL field. And so we're going to write this out, was delivered. And so I've created that. I'm happy with it. I'm maybe not thinking too much about my company style guide. I'm just hoping to get this out. And so I save it, make sure everything's okay, go, yep, good. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to commit and push it. So that's going to commit it to GitHub. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, our company has a process of using pull requests to change things. And so I'm going to open a PR. We're going to call this adding a new dimension for the webinar. Added was delivered, and I'm going to create a PR. And I might, add some reviewers typically and all of that stuff. And so what you're going to see here immediately is that we've got a required status check in here for the style validator in Spectacles. That's what we're calling our linter. And so you can see that it's required. You can see that I'd be blocked from merging this for a number of reasons. One, I need to get a reviewer, but two, because I need all the code that I've written to adhere to our style guide. And so what's happening here, if we click details, is that Spectacles is doing exactly what I did previously. It's cloning your code and it's running our linter on top of all that code, making sure it checks all the rules that we've set. And so what are those rules? You'll be able to find in our docs, but we've got a list of all the rules that come kind of pre-baked in with our linter. There's about 20 of them or so. And by default, all of these will run on your project. And so that's what's happening for us here. Spectacles is cloning the code and it's making sure that all these things that we care about matter. Now, this is slightly opinionated. These are the rules that kind of we, the team at Spectacles, have decided matter most. And what's really cool about Spectacles is you can kind of customize that as much as you want. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But at its core today, having done no setup, these are all the rules that are going to get run against our instance. As you can see, there's a couple things. There's a code for each one. So the code relates to what's being tested. So D is for dimension, E is for explore, J for join, M for measure, that type of stuff. And it's going to check a whole range of things. Things like, yes, no dimension doesn't start with is or has, one that I may be about to find I'm in violation of. But also, if you haven't written dimensions in snake case, primary key needs to be the first dimension in the view. What's cool about the way we've done this is you can turn any of these on or off. So you don't need to have all of these. If you care about some of these and not others, that's very easy to do. I'm not going to go through these all now, but we'll be sharing this out after the webinar. And so coming back to Spectacles, what we can see both here and in GitHub, we can see that we've got an X here telling us, hey, something's wrong. Is we can see that Spectacles has returned 2 errors in our style validator, in our linter. And so there's two issues here. One is that the visible dimension is missing a description. So was delivered is not hidden, but in my haste to get it out, I did not add a description to it. And so that's something that I'm going to go back and I'll add one in. And the second one was saying, hey, yes, no dimensions should start with is or has. That's a naming convention that we believe in. And I may go, okay, well, this one's legitimate, but I'm going to speak to my team about this one because I think was, which is similar to is and has, is a totally reasonable kind of prefix for a Boolean field, for a yes, no field. And, I'll speak to them and we'll agree, yeah, you know what, that's good. And so what I'm going to do in that case is I'm going to customize that rule. I'm going to override it so that it passes in this case, but passes in the future as well. If anyone else, wants to create a dimension that yes, no dimension that starts with was. So if we come back here, I'm going to write my description. I should really have plugged in ChatGPT or something, GPT-3 to write this for me. But whether the order was delivered, we're going to say yes, no, just for completing that. So that's what I'm going to do there. But then I want to customize the rule for the other one. I don't want to, change it to is or has. And the way you do this is, in my opinion, really cool. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file called lkmlstyle.yaml. And so this is a YAML file where you can, disable rules, enable rules, set different sets of rules for different files in your project. You can really, all from this file, do a lot of customization. The other thing you can do in it is you can provide custom rules, which is what I'm going to do in this case. So one of the other things that we make public as part of this is the YAML for all of our existing rules. And so again, this is all going to be public. You can come in here and kind of copy one to edit it or overwrite it. And so I can see here that the rule that I'm, having some issue with is D100. And so if I come here and I search for D100, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this YAML, which defines the rule. I'm going to paste it here. And so right now, this is the exact rule as it was before. You can see that there's a title, a code, and then a bunch of logic that basically defines how the rule is implemented. Now, you don't need to follow this exactly right now. There's a lot of kind of slightly complicated stuff here. There's going to be guides for what all these things mean. But what I really care about is I want to update the title so that it is inclusive of the rule. And you can see that there's a regex here that has the is or the has. And this is setting, hey, this is what this needs to match in order for it to pass. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit that. So I'm going to change this to is, was, or has. And I'm going to edit this rule so that it says, hey, is, was, or has all work. And what's cool is this is in our repo. So when we clone this down, our linter will immediately pick this up. It will use this rule. And hopefully with this plus the description update, we should get a passing state. So I'm going to come back here. Fixes plus. I'm going to commit that. And as Spectacles would do with anything else, the second that new commit comes in, it's going to kick off a new run. We're going to see the details button here. And we click straight into it. There we go. As this is doing the same thing, it's cloning that code, it's checking out that new commit, and it's running everything on it. Now, typically here, you wouldn't just have the linter running. You'd also have, as I talked about earlier, the SQL validator, the content validator, the assert validator that tell us that all of our SQL is also good and that we're not breaking any content and that our data tests pass. What's nice, I guess, from our point of view of having this in Spectacles directly is it's just one additional thing to all your other Spectacles checks. You can really easily deploy it. You can really easily add those other validators to it. And you'd often have kind of 3 or 4 things here telling you on your pull request all the things that are good or are bad. That helps a couple people. It helps the developer, if they're on the right path, if they're making any mistakes. And it really helps the review process. It means that you don't have multiple people having to go super in depth on the review process, reviewing code, checking things like, hey, is the primary key the first dimension? Are things following the right naming convention? Or all of our counts started with count underscore, things like that. And it just saves everyone a ton of time. Reduces friction within teams and really helps you kind of everyone, as Adrian talked about, kind of new joiners in particular, come and start committing to the code base really quickly. And so you can see here, it passes. Likewise, on the pull request, immediately tells us, yep, your whole code base matches your style guide. I'd still be waiting for a review, but I know that I could merge this in quickly. And that at its core is it today. We'll be making all this public. We'll be emailing all of you all of this, the rules, the YAML stuff. But if you do want to try it out, and let me just get back to the slides as I share this. If you do want to try this out, if you're an existing customer, just drop us a message. We'll book a call with you to turn it on, walk you through it. We're booking calls just because we really want to get feedback on and understand which bits, which rules people find the most useful, things like that. If today you are not a Spectacles customer and you want to try this out, we provide free trials to everyone of our tool. We'd love for everyone, as many people as possible, to try out the Linter. So just get in touch. Either drop us a message in the Slack that you've just joined. You can book a demo on the website. You've got our emails because we've sent you a bunch in the lead up to this webinar. We've been Looker users for a long time. We've been wanting to build this Linter for a long time. I think just personally it's really cool. We'd love to get it in the hands of as many people as possible. So we'd really love to hear from you. And on that note, we're going to move to a Q&A. And so I haven't been able to keep an eye on Slack while we've been talking, but we're going to answer questions that are here. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the Slack message, and Adrian and I are going to answer them for the next kind of 10 minutes or so, as much time as we have left for the webinar. So thank you very much, everyone. Question from Mariana: would the functionality be available through CLI? It's not. We made a decision not to open source this part of the Spectacles tool. A lot of the other stuff is, for a variety of reasons, decided that this was going to be kind of proprietary tech. We thought that the best experience that people could have with it is through the hosted application. And so it is part of the Spectacles app. There isn't a CLI that you can use. And it was just kind of a decision we made while we were building it. So I seeded one question here. Oh, here we go, another one. Is there a way that we could run SQLFluff on the SQL bits of the Looker code? That is a really good question. The answer is no today, but is likely something that we'll do in the future as part of this Linter, where we'll find derived tables and things like that, and try to run something like SQLFluff. I think one of the areas where there's some friction there is in the same way that Adrian talked about, that SQLFluff has been built to work with DBT, but they had to do a lot of stuff around like compiling it and getting rid of all the ginger and all that stuff. The same is going to apply to a lot of derived tables in Looker, where there's a lot of liquid in there that native, like SQLFluff isn't equipped to handle, and other SQL Linters aren't equipped to handle. And so it is something that we intend to do, but there's a couple hurdles there, and we'll probably work with the SQLFluff team, hopefully on resolving some of those things. But we agree, it's a really useful use case. A lot of people have really large derived tables in their LookML code, and making sure that, I think actually in my experience, the style of those SQL derived tables, because it's not formatted in like a SQL query, it's just kind of hanging in the LookML, is often where a lot of the discussion and disagreement within teams comes, and yeah, we hope to be able to help with that. Perfect. Adrian, you actually had a question. Do you want to talk about that one?
Is it like when it's running, is it using like a worker, like inside Spectacles?
It's not. So actually to run for those who aren't familiar, to run all the other Spectacles validators, you need to give us API credentials to Looker to run it, because to run the SQL queries, to run the content validator, we need Looker API credentials to run all of those things. In the case of this Linter, we actually don't need that. So it won't lock up a worker in Spectacles, a set of API credentials in the same way, or it certainly doesn't need them. It will actually get locked up in the run with all the other processes that are going, the SQL validator, content validator, but we don't technically need it to run the Linter. What we do need is the deploy key. So as part of setting up the Linter, you will get a deploy key that all Git providers support. You'll save it there, and that's how we access and clone the code, because you actually can't clone repos in their entirety through the Looker API. I seeded one question at the top here, which I'll answer is self-interested. Does the Spectacles Linter run incrementally on just the changes in the PR? So if we've got a big project and I'm just changing one dimension, does it just run on that one dimension? The answer today is no, it runs on the entirety of the project. It's pretty performant, so it doesn't take a lot of time, but we do understand that there'll be people, as Adrian talked about earlier, who want to kind of ease themselves in to the linter and not run it against the whole project right away. And we will be releasing incrementality, kind of incremental functionality in the near future that we do have on our other validators. And so that will be coming, but it's not in the first version. What you can do, though, which Adrian talked about earlier, is you can just turn it on for chunks of the project at a time. So you can say, hey, turn it on for this clean folder and then add this clean folder and do it one at a time, which allows people to kind of expand as you go. We have another question here. Can you elaborate a bit on the 20 rules? Are they in their majority based on lambs, or are there a lot of proprietary rules? That's a great question. I can't easily share my screen, so I'm going to leave it where it is. The rules are kind of taken from a bunch of style guides. So we looked at lambs, but we also looked at other style guides that people put out there. Some of the big consultancies, some people that look at themselves, just some companies who have open sourced theirs. And the rule set today is kind of it's not a superset of those. It does pull from all of those, but it's really our opinion on what we think, what's the 80% that is going to provide a lot of value to most Looker teams. That we think, isn't egregious, isn't like, too strict, that we think most people will want. And so it's mostly things like naming conventions for dimensions and measures, ordering of dimensions and measures, making sure that, joins and explorers define the relationships, that measures start with the right prefix, depending on what their type is. I can pull up some of the others here, which I think you'll all actually still be able to see. Missing labels, and then there's some kind of practical things. So wildcard includes can really slow down your Looker instance. So making sure that you're being as specific as you can with the includes. That's really the type of stuff that we're talking about. But what we really aim for is for this to be as easily customizable as possible. And so we want to provide you the ability to edit our existing rules, but also we'll be likely open sourcing a repo that has kind of like everyone's custom rules. So our idea is that everyone who uses the tool will have their own custom rules, that we can centralize those in one place so that you can easily see that the other rules or the rule sets that other companies use kind of copy those and build out your own list there, which is kind of how we hope the collaborative nature of it comes about. I think that is all the questions for the moment. I will give it a second, see if anyone else comes through with one. It looks like we're probably good. So first off, thank you very much. I hope you all found this interesting. A big thank you to Adrian for his presentation. We're a big fan of the team at Infinite Lambda. We like all the linters that he talked about as part of this. And so if you have questions for any of us going forward, find us in the Slack channel. You've also got our details directly. I want to just highlight our upcoming webinars. So I talked about them earlier. We've got one coming up in 2 weeks on the introduction to the Looker API. And we've got another one in 4 weeks, 2 weeks after that, on optimizing cost and speed using BigQuery and Looker. So head to spectacles.dev/webinars to sign up for all of those. We'd love to have you join. We'll be in Slack as well to have those conversations. And if there's anything that you've done interesting or something that you'd like us to talk about, we'd love to either have any of you present if there's an interesting topic, something cool you've done in Looker. Really, this webinar was more about spectacles than most of ours are. Really, they're we kind of want them to just be Looker focused webinars. And so you don't need to be a customer of ours. You don't need to be a consulting partner of ours. Just get in touch. We'd love to kind of give you a platform to talk about cool stuff that you've done in and around Looker. So I hope to see you at some of these in the future. And as I talked about earlier, if you're interested in a demo or a trial of spectacles, particularly if you want to try the linter, also get in touch. There's really no commitment for any of this stuff. We just like speaking to people who are doing, working with Looker. We've got a ton of experience in the space. We just enjoy having those conversations and want to get this linter in as many people's hands as possible. So we will leave it there. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you,
Adrian, big thank you to you.
Thank you to you. And see you soon.
everyone, if you have any other questions, just follow up in the Slack channel. We'll see you there. Have a great day, everyone.